computer.
Right.
Hello, I'm here today with Mitra, and she's from at Life with Mitra, and I've been following her for a while. And she is also a very good friend of my daughter's from high school. They were good friends in high school, and I love your posts, Mitra, because they're all about kind of self-care and just every time I watch them, I kind of feel this kind of like I've just taken a deep breath. There's a peacefulness and a calmness to them. And I was looking forward to interviewing you here in February because this is our month of self-love.
Yes.
And you just seem to fit right in. And you have a very interesting background on Instagram and social media. And I want to maybe start with that. If you could tell us a little bit about how your journey on that.
Definitely. Also, thank you for having me, Jane. So excited to be here. And yeah, so a little bit, I guess, about my background with social media. I got into it around 2013. Um, I initially started more in kind of the fashion industry, fashion, makeup, mainly being the two industries I was focused in. And then I was in it quite heavily for about 6 years, a bit dabbled in YouTube, but mostly on Instagram. And I it came to a point where I was starting to ask myself, like, do you actually like this? Are you happy? I was so set on a certain pathway that this was what I wanted to quote unquote content creator. I know influencer was kind of the word back
Yeah.
then. But I was just so set on this being a full-time influencer being my dream that I wasn't maybe listening to some cues that I actually this didn't quite align with my I guess my true values because fast fashion this doesn't quite align with what I believe in sustainability and et cetera, et cetera. So I actually took some time off for about 3 years, I would say. Yeah, around there. I left Instagram and I was honestly just going through a lot of healing. I was recognizing a lot of honestly, the truth really started surfacing. I was kind of going through a version of myself that needed to kind of um, be met with how do I say this? I guess kind of like an ego death. Like I guess I recognized what parts of me were to show the world versus what was actually in alignment with myself. And so I came, I had known for the time that I took off that I really wanted to come back. But when I did come back, for it to be like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
This is really what my true values are. And I did a lot of growing and I yeah, we're just going through a lot mentally that it was too much to be online at the same time. The wounds were open, should I say. So I returned, I would say more consistently last year, September is kind of when I posted, like I have kind of returned and my content is more about mindfulness. I really wanted to share kind of how mindfulness has played a huge role for me these past few years of really discovering what I'm feeling deep inside. And yeah, so I guess that is kind of my journey of social media, leaving and then coming back to slowly, yeah, start posting about like I said, mindfulness, about self-love, self-care, how to be honestly to be yourself more. But I'm still kind of in the beginning stages. It's only been a few months since I've returned, consistently posting. And so I'm still figuring out navigating how I want to put together my content. But for now, I'm quite happy with,
Right.
um, yeah.
Well, that is very interesting because I mean, you were on Instagram when people like me didn't even know it existed, kind of. Like you were an early adapter and you were very successful. And then you just said, like, look, this isn't who I am. This is kind of fake. This is
It's not fake. Yes,
fake.
yes.
And I think so. One of my one of questions for you, or something I'd like you to comment on is like for
Yes.
me,
Mhm.
part of self-love is understanding that you don't have to be perfect to be
Correct.
good. You
Yes.
can be good
Yes.
without being perfect.
Yes. Yes.
And so, now, do you want to comment on that? Do you have a comment on that, or do you just?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And just like what the hell is perfection? Like who decides what like that looks like? And I think um yeah, like we come to this earth being ourselves, trying to be ourselves. Like I experienced like what it was to try to like unravel not being self. And then so it's just like you said, coming to terms with just doing the best that you can and not to a standard that someone else has put on us or what that
Right.
perfection looks like.
Absolutely. And so for what does self-love look like to you?
Yes. So self-love to me, honestly, is taking care of myself
Right.
in all ways. It's really being there for myself, as in, I can look at myself and say, like, do you got me? Like in all the times. And I felt like a lot of times that I felt a lot of sadness was because I abandoned myself.
Right.
And sometimes we don't recognize that we're abandoning self, like when we're feeling very deep sadness. Are we just walking out the door where now I recognize, like, oh, what can I do for you, Mitra? Like, I'm kind of having a conversation with self of like, how can I best support you right now? And just always constantly checking in with myself. What can we do to make you feel better? Or maybe it's discipline. Maybe it's discipline that I need. Um, or just big large amounts of compassion
Right.
um is what love means to me, is just being there for yourself with no judgment, and finding finding space to explore what is going on within.
Right.
Because if we know what is really happening on the inside and we can honestly communicate with ourselves and have that safe space to say, hey, this is how I feel, like you just have this bond with self that you have each other's back, you're holding your own hand. And I feel powerful when I am there for myself and I can move forward with the things in life. um yeah
Right.
when
Well, I
when I
mean, I like what you said there. You said, okay, before I would have just thought, oh, I'm sad. And then I walk out the door and you push down that feeling. You think,
maybe you
oh,
get distracted, yeah, and you watch something, yeah,
and
exactly.
you just walk out the door and go about your day, and you don't really explore, well, why am I feeling sad? Or
Yes.
why am I feeling this way? Or yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's awesome. That's a great, and like, so one of the things that we're all kind of and it sounds like you were too, is that you go on Instagram and you see everybody's life and it
Mm-hmm.
looks amazing,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, how do you avoid comparing
Mm.
yourself to everybody else on social media?
Yes, I've definitely gotten better with this. And I think before, when I was heavily on social media, I don't think I actually was aware that there was comparison happening in the first place.
Right. Okay.
I think that Instagram was a place where I sometimes, like, it was very mindless. Like I wasn't quite in tune with what, also because it's so fast, first of all,
Right.
that there's no time to process. Like after you just watch that clip, how do you feel? Like there was no checking in with self because it was
Right.
just looking on Instagram, and then I leave. And then you wonder why your energy is way lower after. But um now I'm much more intentional and aware of when I am on social media. Like, why am I on social media right now? What is my intention? And then that's why I'm on it for very short periods of time, is because I need time to process and I guess bring awareness to how I feel after the content that I am consuming.
Right.
So basically, to answer your question about what I can do to uh, in order to not compare with others, was to be aware of how you're feeling. Because for me, like practicing presence, if I can just accept. This is something I'm really learning in life, is when we accept and we let go of the future, we let go of these expectations, and we just become so present with where we are in our lives today, it kind of just melts away in the way of I trust my own path. I trust that I am where I am today is meant to be where I am today. So actually that gives me so much freedom. So when I do look at someone else's life, I just have so much, I guess, like I can be excited for them that they're in their life at that's on their timing. And I trust that my own path, like I am here, is
Your
is
time.
is my exactly is my time, and whatever that I am manifesting into my life or I am desiring to come into my life, I know it will come. I already trust that, and I trust in the timing so deeply that comparison kind of doesn't can't really exist if we just practice being so accepting of where we are in this exact moment.
Yourself, right? Exactly. Well, that's so, gosh, how did you get so wise? What did you like?
I, being offline helps too for that. Just
Oh,
being present on it. I think I'll keep talking about it, Jane, but like I don't think I knew what presence was actually before, even a few years ago. I think I logically knew that being in the present moment was like, you're here, you're taking in your senses of now. But I think my mind was on autopilot so much that I couldn't be aware of what I was feeling on the inside. So now that with presence and I practice being as present as I can, I catch myself each time my mind wanders. It's helped so much with my journey of self-love because I'm so aware of what's going on internally as well as externally. And so they go so hand in hand. Well, presence goes hand in hand with everything, but yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, and I like what you said about give yourself some time to process things. Like, I mean, nowadays there's
yes,
TikTok, there's all this stuff, and we're just
yes,
flipping through it, and there's so much we're
too
getting
much.
ahead. And it's like, oh my gosh, what did I just see today? What does it mean for me?
Yes.
How do I even process this? So I like the idea that you're just saying, so I just go on social media a little bit and I just look at that.
Yes, yes. I don't like scrolling. I intentionally, there's some people that I would love to see what they're up to and go watch their specific, so type in their account and their stories.
Yeah.
And if I am looking for inspiration, then okay, maybe it's a little bit of browsing time. But if I know just because I just want to touch on this, like the reels nowadays, oh my goodness, it is like you see 20 clips in 7 seconds. And how is our mind supposed to be accepting of of real time? Like not reels, but real time when things move at the real life pace, we become numbed to real life pace. That we're constantly seeking these 20 clips in 7 seconds, that is going the opposite direction of trying to live a mindful, like real life pace,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I feel like just being giving yourself time to process. So after you get off social media, just before you grab something or just sit there and just like how check in with self. Did that content fuel me? Do I feel inspired by the people I just watched, or how am I feeling? And then that constant checking in with self goes down to it leads to practicing more checking in with your intuition and being able to know what's going on in here.
Right.
Yeah,
So important. So important. Okay, great. And so you have, okay, so I was going to ask you in what ways do you show love for yourself? But I mean, you've
yes,
already said you're present,
yeah, like
your
I guess.
mindfulness, you're practicing mindfulness. And do you have a practice every day where you're
So actually my practice is just I in my days. Like
right?
whether I'm pouring a cup of tea. I don't want to be thinking about an email I need to be writing. I will think about that email when it's time to write that email. So I just come back to being mindful with everything I do.
Right.
And I don't really believe in, for me, multitasking. No, I just want to be focusing, giving all my energy into one thing because it also that's how I practice mindfulness, but also I remember things. I can remember exactly in that moment how I felt, what I was sensing, smelling, all these things. So also I did want to add actually a couple of things. because they do go in hand of constantly checking in with myself, but listening to my inner child really has been a really big thing with my journey. Showing love for myself and letting her come out and speak with no judgment. And I think the inner child has so much wisdom, and she, in my way, she kind of lets me feel a bit more fluid and flexible and open-minded. And what else did it, one second. Oh, and one more thing was I do have a lot of me time. I actually, boundaries are very big for me. For example, I'm on airplane mode for usually the first couple hours that I wake up and then before I go to bed. So just being very disconnected from the world so that I can really practice tuning in with myself and my space. And I feel like that is a huge way that I show respect and love for myself, to create those spaces that I can, yeah, just be with self. Because if I take care of me, I know that I can do all the things that I desire to do, and I'm showing up fully. Yeah.
Other people. That is brilliant. That's really good advice, because I mean, I'm guilty of this. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is grab my phone and say, well,
Yeah.
put it on airplane mode, Jane.
On airplane mode, it really helps.
Yeah,
And
that's brilliant. Okay.
actually, once you start, like the idea of checking my phone as soon as I wake up, like I actually would want to throw up. Like absolutely not. I have no desire. But to get to there, it's gonna take a few times, or it's gonna take times that you're gonna want to grab it, and you just gotta. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not, and it's not gonna be easy at first. But there's gonna, I promise you, come a time where that idea disgusts you of being on your phone, because the slowness and the presence that I feel in the first couple hours of that I'm awake, I bring that into my day. So like that, this kind of agitated, quick energy, I don't have that. And I don't allow that to come into my space, because I know, like, I feel good when I come at things in a very slow pace, and it's very intentional. And so it's just practice, honestly. And like airplane mode really helps, because
Yeah, you can't, shuts it down. Okay,
yes.
well, that is great advice. And that was my next question. Like, what's your advice for people? And I like, that's super advice. I mean, I think that's a good idea. Get off your phones.
Get off your phone. Definitely, definitely. Honestly, everyone really is on their own path, is like what I wanted to kind of chat about is, you know,
I think we can be kind to ourselves.
definitely.
I think we do see other people's paths and we think, well, I should be able to do that. I should be doing this. And it's part of like, yes, in your own time.
In your own time. Exactly. And when we trust that, then again, the comparison goes out the door, and there's just a better, more connected, fluid relationship with self. Like you want to talk to yourself like, hey babe, come here, how are you doing, instead of like yelling at yourself.
Yeah.
But like we don't hear the yell because it's not like like we don't hear it out loud. But
Right.
once you start to notice, oh, that wasn't a very nice way that I'm approaching this, like you can kind of feel your energy. Does my energy feel light and fluid? That's a very nice communication with self. Or do I feel like anxious and agitated? And like you can just tune in with the energy to know how you're communicating with self. And just like, no, we have one life. We have this one beautiful life to be here on earth, experience this human experience. So like might as well like make the best of it. Like we have one relationship with ourselves, right? So kind of nurture that relationship, and ask yourself, like, how can I support you? So again, like giving your time to process. After you have you have coffee with a friend, ask yourself, how was that for you? How are you feeling? Like maybe that person, let's say they brought a lot of anxiety to you, like maybe we need to talk about that. So as we tune in with self and we check in with self, the bond and the trust and the honesty that you can create with yourself just gets so expansive, that you're not like hiding behind a rock trying to communicate to yourself like, hey, like that didn't make me feel good, instead of like there is no rock and you're just looking at yourself. we are, this is, I guess, metaphorically speaking, is we're always one, but kind of being able to communicate with self to say, like, hey, like, this is how I feel. And that bond, I feel like, will take you big places, because when we can be honest, like I said, and truthful with ourselves.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because I mean, as I've gotten older, I kind of I've become more aware, and I know that, like, I'll, when you say you have coffee with friends or something, and I have, there's friends who I go and I think, okay, I can do this, but I can only do this much time with you because I know you're going to be a um more of a drain than and then I have other friends who are just like fill you up.
Fill you up. Feel, yes, yes. And knowing, like, and that's the hard part, is like, we need to surround ourselves with people that fill us up. And if someone is draining you, then that, again, act of self-love is like, you love yourself enough that those people kind of need to go. But that, it can be very, that's another topic maybe, like
But yeah,
how to
but
communicate
it
that.
is
But
part of self-love. It is
it
part
is.
of just recognizing that and being aware of, like, how do I feel after that? How do I feel after? Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can, yeah, because that checking in with self can really give you the answers. And it's kind of like knocking on the door. Like, how often is that not going to be happening? We need to deal with things as they come, is what I've really learned. Is don't keep suppressing, don't keep putting it off. Like, now you have how many years of baggage coming along with you on your journey. Like, I truly want to live where I deal with things as they come each day, so that every day when I wake up, I'm not thinking about something that's bothering me from 6 months ago. I deal with it, and that act of, like, I guess, self-love, of just being there for myself, like, now I can live today fully, instead of my energy being taken away from things from the past that I haven't dealt with.
Right.
So,
Right. Exactly. So deal with things as they come up. Don't
yes.
let them harbor.
And that, and again, and that exactly is, and how does one go about that? That's, again, tuning in with self to ask, like, how can we best navigate these emotions? Like, we have to create a safe space to be able to tell ourselves, this is how I'm feeling. So it comes with creating that safe space, and then knowing what tools we can use, in order to make the steps forward, whether maybe we do need some help, some external help to help with those things. But step one is creating a safe space to be able to communicate honestly with yourself. Mhm.
Just how you're feeling and things. So that's brilliant advice. I mean, so for, a young woman, you've got amazing wisdom, and I appreciate you sharing it with us here today, Mitra. I really, and I wish you well on your Instagram page, and
Thank
and
you.
maybe on your podcast.
Future podcast
Future
coming soon.
podcast coming
Yes,
soon. I'm really excited to
thank
hear
you.
about that, and keep us posted on Broadcast Love, because we want to hear about it, because you've got some great wisdom to share with the world, and you should be out there doing it. Yeah, for sure. And I really appreciate your time today.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me and
Oh,
giving
thank
the
you for
time
coming.
and space to share. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank
Yes.
you.